Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Tom LaHue, and we're going to be talking today about Enneagram Type 6 and specifically the blind spots of Type 6. And before we get started, I just want to remind you that in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com, if you want to contact me or if you want to schedule a coaching appointment. Also, I want to thanks all my patrons on Patreon. There's a link listed below. Thank you guys for your support and your encouragement. So let's jump into Type 6 today. I do have a lot of family friends that are Type 6. My brother's a 6, my mom's a 6, my mother-in-law before she passed away is a 6, and did I say my daughter is a 6? Yeah, and I certainly have a 6 wing, a strong 6 wing. I'm a 7 wing 6. Not that I understand everything about 6s, but I do have a lot of reference points and have had lots of appointments with 6s, of course. So let's talk about some blind spots for Type 6 from Beatrice Chestnut's book. She lists several blind spots. When I think of Type 6s, you know, these may be people who are struggling with anxiety and fear and trying to, protect themselves from those fears. And of course, their passion or their sin is fear, and they might look anxious. They might not. They might look very bold and courageous as a way of dealing with that anxiety or that fear. 6s move to 9 when they look like a 9 when they're healthy and balanced. They realize maybe things are going to be okay, and I can have peace, and I can have some security. When they're under stress, they might look like a 3. Differentiating themselves away from the group, away from the team. 6s want to be a part of a team. They want to feel safe and secure in that team, like that team is going to be there to protect them, and they'll be there to support those team members, follow the rules, do the right thing, and you'll be okay. But when they're under stress, you might see that 6 pull away from that team and attempt to sort of prove their worth and value as a way of mitigating their fears. Let me give you an example. If imagine that you got a memo at work on Friday that said, "Oh, by the way, next month we're going to be eliminating a couple of jobs. Have a nice weekend." Well, that's kind of the feeling that I think 6s have, is that feeling that some of us are going to get fired. Some of us are going to lose our job. Well, it's not going to be me. I'm going to find out, what do you know? What do you know? Trying to get support from others and make relationships with important people that might be able to protect my job. And I'm going to stay focused on following the guidelines and doing things the right way, so that when that manager comes, that supervisor comes, I'm going to pull away from the team, and I'm going to make sure that I do my job well and that I'm related to the right people, relating well to the right people, because I don't want to lose my job. So there's that fear that's driving 6s and compelling them to stay connected to their relationships and to check in on those relationships. I think 6s tend to think of relationships like a garden. They've got to be tended to. 9s, for example, or 5s, they might take their relationships for granted and think, well, we left on good terms, so if I don't talk to you in a year, it's fine. You call me in a year, we'll just pick up right where we left off. I don't think 6s are going to be comfortable with letting a year go by without checking in on their relationships. They may check in on their relationships every couple weeks. Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Just checking in on you. Make sure everything's okay. They want that reassurance that those connections are still solid and strong. So they tend to nurture relationships like maybe a 2 would. They tend to nurture relationships like they're a garden, like they need to be cared for. So that those relationships will remain secure. So when 6s are under stress, you might see them proving themselves, proving their value, proving their worth, separating away from the team, getting out in front, getting ahead, and trying to deal with their fears in that way. All right, so let me begin. I've already jumped 5 minutes into this video, but let me begin with this idea that when you look for problems, you're bound to find them. That's a good thought for 6s to think about. When you go looking for problems, guess what? You're bound to find them. The reverse of that may also be true too as well. Think about, like, from a 9's perspective, the 9's wisdom to the 6 might be something like, when you go looking for problems, you're bound to find them, but also the solution to all problems is that there is not a problem. Now think about that one as a 6. The solution to all problems is that there's no problem. Oftentimes 6s, may sort of project problems. If they're aware and they become aware of this, they may see this tendency within them to sort of project problems where there isn't a problem. And you might ask them, is there really a problem, or is the problem something that you're projecting into reality? So let's get into the list. Okay, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. Blind spot number 1 is you may be blind to your own center of or power or authority. 6s tend to be looking outside themselves for their security. They're looking, for that perfect leader. They're looking for that strong, dominant, powerful person that they can believe in, that they can trust, that they can get behind and support. And they may be a little bit cautious in believing in themselves. They may be looking, for that person to come in who takes action, who has that commanding presence, and the 6 wants to sort of line up with them and support them. And they may, be blind to their own ability, their own power. Well, why aren't you that person? I mean, there's that question, is why aren't you that person, that strong, dominant, powerful person that you're looking to get behind? Why aren't you that person? Maybe you could be. Maybe there's more of that in you than you think there is. Rather than looking externally for that strong, authoritative leader, maybe you could develop into that. Why can't you see that in yourself? Can you see yourself being that person? If not, why not? That's an interesting question. You may be blind to your own inner sense of power and your inner sense of authority. And so 6s might tend to sort of stand on the sidelines, encouraging those in authority or challenging those in authority, but maybe not necessarily wanting to be those in authority. Why not? Why don't you step up to the line and take that position, take that responsibility? Maybe the fear of failure, or the fear of being picked off as a leader, or the fear of being criticized or being turned against yourself as a leader may be too strong and too overwhelming. So 6s may have a tendency to sort of project their power and authority onto others, meaning that rather than sitting in my own power and my own authority and stepping up to the plate and making the decision for myself and standing in that decision, I may tend to surrender that power and authority over to somebody else, expecting them to sort of take the first step, and then I'll line up with them. So learning to recognize and develop and acting from your own deep sense of confidence, that may be a blind spot for 6s. Projecting your power onto others, looking for others to know what I should do. And then when that leader steps out, then second guessing that leader. Okay, so the next blind spot is seeing the positive data in any given situation. The focus of the attention. Now that's interesting to think about. Where does the focus of your attention go? For 6s, the focus of their attention might tend to go in what's wrong, in what's not working. Just like a 4 is going to look at what's wrong. A 1 is going to look at what's wrong, what's not folded correctly, who's not on time at work. The 4 is going to be focused on this color scheme is incorrect, it's not right, this romantic exchange is not all it could be. 7s tend to focus on how things could be better in their experience, how things could be improved, how things could be lighter and more fun. 6s, the focus of their attention is going to go on what is dangerous, or what is a potential threat, or what might go wrong, or what could go wrong. And they tend to be glass half empty kind of people, looking for signs that things aren't working, looking for signs that things might not work, that there may be danger or threats. And again, I think this is why 6 needs 7. 6 and 7 are on a line there. There's a split where 6s tend to look at what could go wrong, what is wrong, what might go wrong, and then want to plan to mitigate those fears. 7 tends to think everything's going to work out fine. Everything's going to be great. I mean, maybe we're all going to land on our feet and the sales are going to go up and people are going to love it. And that balance between those two things is good for the 7 and good for the 6. If the 6 could lean on their 7 a little bit and say, maybe things are going to be okay. Maybe this presentation, maybe I'm going to do fine. Maybe I could be willing to get a pie in the face. 7s don't mind getting a pie in the face. They don't mind, things not working out perfectly at first and then figuring it out and solving it. They're okay being laughed at. They're okay being, with failure. A little bit more than 6s would be. 6s failure and being wrong, that's what you're afraid of, is then the asteroids from the sky will fall on you and it'll be the end times if you fail or if you admit that you're wrong. 7s, I think, don't mind admitting they're wrong. They're sort of figuring out as they go. So that line there is a good balance. 6s need to learn to balance on that 7 and say, maybe it's okay if things don't work out perfectly at first. Maybe we'll end up landing on our feet. Maybe things are going to be fine. Maybe people are going to love me. I can stand up. I can give this presentation. And if a couple of people snicker at me, that's no big deal. A couple pies in the face, you're going to get a couple pies in the face. If you're going to put yourself out there, there's going to be a few people that dissent and walk away, but that's okay. The 7 could use that caution of the 6, like maybe I should slow down and make a plan. Maybe I should expect that, some people might be suspicious of this. Some people might be against me. And maybe I should be a little more careful or show a little bit more attention, a little bit more care, a little more planning. So what a healthy balance between 6 and 7. We both need each other, okay? 6s need to lean on their 7, 7s need to lean on their 6. Okay, number 3. Another blind spot of the 6 is you have a tendency to sort of project your fears onto the outside world. And this is what I was talking about a few moments ago, is, 6s can have a kind of a tendency to think the worst thing might happen, or that people aren't trustworthy or reliable. And I think what's helpful to consider here is, are those based in reality? Those thoughts, those opinions, those feelings, are those based in reality? Is your suspicion based in something that was actually said that that would cause any other type to become suspicious? Realize that within you as a 6, you tend to have that suspicious nature. You tend to have that sort of scanning nature. 6s are scanning their environment to see, do people really mean what they say? Can people really be trusted? Will they lead us off a cliff? Or will they really stand behind what they say? And so 6s within you is that anxiety, is within you is that fear, and then you might tend to at times project that out into the world and then find the supposed reason for your fear. Really the reason I'm afraid is Bob. Bob, he's not trustworthy. He doesn't come through. I can see the twitch in his eye when he promises stuff, and I don't know whether I can really trust him. Well, has Bob really proven himself to be untrustworthy, or is this just something within you that you are now projecting out onto Bob? And if it wasn't Bob, maybe it would be somebody else. Maybe as soon as you're done with Bob and Bob's out of the way, you might find that pattern, that loop starts to repeat itself, and now we're suspicious of, and then you fill in the next person. Now it's Mary. And then when you get done with Mary, then maybe, I think that maybe it's not true of you. That's great, okay? But I think it's something that you ought to pause and think about. And this, I think, would really be helped. This idea of projecting your fears on the external world is by leaning on your 5. When a 6 leans on their 5, it's as if they're saying, I need actual data. I need real, observable, objective data. Not the stuff I'm feeling on the inside, not the anxiety, not the fear, but like what actually was said. Did they say in the meeting that I was going to lose my job? Did they say in the meeting that my position wasn't safe? Did they say in the meeting that, or because that's actual data, and 6s could benefit when they start getting out of their heads, so to speak, out of that mental loop of anxiety, and then go back and look at the actual data and examine it for what it is, and then try to extrapolate now based on the actual data and the actual information. You know, fives are data nuts. Fives want to know what is the actual data. What are the facts? Fives don't care about how you feel about the facts. They don't look for the underlying motives in the gathering of the facts. They just want the data, the raw data. They want to analyze it, understand it, and then, you know, regurgitate it. Sixes sort of have a sharper edge to them. You know, they're looking for what's not being said. They're looking for, you know, who funded this study, and what was the outcomes of this study. And you know, they sort of have that sharp edge to them that they realize that all data could be obscured and biased depending on who's behind this data. Again, fives need that. Fives need to not be naive about data. They need to be a little more cautious and suspicious. Suspicious that this data that I'm looking at, you know, that all data can be biased depending on how it's presented and how it's collected, and also that when I present this data, people may be biased against it. People may be suspicious of my data. Fives may not realize that. A 5-wing-4, they just think if I blurt this out, then people will believe it because this is what the actual data says. But, you know, people won't necessarily believe data simply because it's verified. They may be you know, naturally suspicious of, well, where did you get that information? And well, that's your opinion, or that's your, and fives may be taken aback by that. No, this is not my opinion. This is the actual facts. So sixes have that sharp edge to them when it comes to data. And I think if sixes and fives could balance on each other, right, and six could lean over into five and say, you know, what are the actual facts? What was actually said? You know, did Bob really give me any reason to be suspicious, or is this just something that's generating within me that I need to pause and slow down on? Has Bob proven himself over his track record to be untrustworthy and unreliable? That would be good for the six to lean into that and be willing to accept data as it is and not necessarily color it through that lens of suspicion or that scanning eye. So yeah, she says it like this: ask yourself periodically if you are responding to a real, there it is right there, a real external threat, or if you're making it up in your head, imagining that it's coming from the outside. See, what I mean is the six might feel like their job is threatened, or they might feel like, you know, people are turning against them. And then if you believe that your job is under threat, it's going to change the way you behave at work. It's going to change the way you interact with people. You might, from that suspicious eye, then begin scanning conversations and listening in and then questioning people, which will then maybe cause them to actually turn against you, because now they feel like they're under the microscope. And all of a sudden they're saying, you know, what's wrong with Sarah? Why is she asking all these questions? And she was asking about why we went to lunch. She was asking about what was said in the meeting and what the supervisor was saying and what's gotten into her. Seems like she's putting me under the third degree. She's putting me under the lens. And then people may do exactly the very thing that you're afraid of. They may begin to turn against you because of all the suspicious questioning that's coming at them. They're caught off guard. Like, why I'm not a threat. Why are you perceiving me as a threat? And then maybe they'll feel threatened by all of your devil's advocate and raising of hands and asking of questions, and then they might actually become a threat. Okay, but notice it may originate in your own perception and get projected out. That's the idea. Okay, number 4? Number 4 is splitting the world in, that's just the idea of splitting. Splitting the world up into good and bad, safe and scary, for me and against me, right and wrong. I think sixes might tend to see the world in terms of white hats and black hats, you know, the villains and the good guys. And this is good and this is bad. This is always good. This is always bad. They might tend to see the world that way. My brother, for example, when he was little, we noticed this tendency in him long before I knew about the Enneagram or Type 6 or anything. I just noticed that, like, you know, at the time I was quite a bit older, so I like now it's classic rock music. It was just rock music back then, you know, and I liked bands like Van Halen and Ozzy and Led Zeppelin and all this. And of course he was just a kid, so it just sounded like noise to him. And I remember him thinking, you like VH, you like Van Halen, you like Ozzy, you like these bands? These are bad, because he would see their pictures and, they'd have blood running down their cheeks or, goofy stuff like that. They looked threatening, I'm sure, to a child, and he'd see pictures of those bands. And in his mind, he just couldn't get his brain around it that you like these bad musicians, these bad music bands. Well, then you must be bad. He would see people smoking. And he would say, oh yeah, that person, that person's bad. That person's bad because they're smoking. And I think sixes might tend to see the world like that, like black and white, right and wrong. Oh, you've proven yourself to be a unreliable source, so I'm done with you. I cut off from you. I separate from you. Oh, you have, this company, it has this symbol on it, this pentagram or this half moon. And so it's satanic. This company is satanic. So we can't buy their products, or this is communistic. This organization is Marxist, it's communistic. And so I think sixes tend to see like the world like we're on the Bengals and they're on the Browns, and there's us and them, and you need to pick sides. You need to choose teams. Which team are you going to be on? We all wear the Bengals jerseys, right? We're all Chevy drivers, Chevy. And if you don't buy a Chevy, then there's something wrong with you. Think fives would go into a car dealership and look at, most reliable statistics, reports, consumer reports, and they would end up maybe, buying a car based on that. Sixes are going to go in, we're a Chevy family. Uncle Billy worked for Chevy for 50 years. That's probably too long. 30 years, and he was a mechanic, and he said Chevys were the most reliable, Chevys were the best, and so go Chevys. And if you don't buy a Chevy, we're not sure about you. If you're a Ford person, then I don't know that, So, and again, I'm oversimplifying this, but it's that kind of team mentality. This is the right group. The Republicans will keep us safe, or the Democrats are communists, or the Republicans are fascists, or whatever. It's like this group keeps us safe, and that group is bad, and that group needs to be exposed. That group needs to be exposed for who they are, and they need to be called out. And they need to be. Okay. So splitting the world into good guys, bad guys, suspicious, and realize, I think, sixes, that the world is more gray than that. There is some good and bad in everybody. I mean, even the best, right, are going to have slip-ups and say things they shouldn't say and make mistakes. And within those teams and within those camps, there's going to be failures. And so all hospitals are trying to kill us with their vaccinations. They're trying to kill us with their, there's probably some doctors out there that aren't in it for the right reasons, but all doctors, or all hospitals, and only, organic bread, and it's kind of like the world is more gray than that. It's not always black and white, so simple to just say, all of this is bad and all of that is good. It's much more gray than that. I know you guys realize that. All right, last thing is your feelings or your gut knowing as a good source of information. Again, I think sixes, that might be a blind spot to you. Sixes rely on the data they generate through their thinking, right? They are separated from thinking. So they tend to feel afraid or feel the fear and then want to move to action and want to take action, and then they'll slip out of that into like overthinking based on their fears and how to mitigate those fears. So they tend to rely on the data they generate through thinking. There's also other ways of knowing things, like, for example, feeling something in your gut, knowing in your gut. They may tend to under-rely on their gut as a co-equal. They may start spinning in their head whether or not somebody could be trustworthy, or whether or not things are going to turn out okay, whether or not they're going to get in trouble, or they're going to there's going to be some kind of problem or jam up in life. And if we can get back to our gut a little bit and get back to, a little bit to intuition and away from anxiety and the spinning in the mind, and just kind of move down into the gut and say, what do you think? I mean, how do you really feel? Look at the actual data. You go to 5, go to 7, and realize that things, might be great. Things might work out fine. Get back into your gut as a way of knowing, as well as just spinning possible scenarios in your head. All right, and remember that point that sometimes the answer to the problem is that there's not a problem. And again, 6s might draw from that 9 energy of, I don't want problems. 9s don't want problems. They don't want to be a problem. They don't want to cause problems, and they don't really want to have to solve problems. 6s are problem solvers. When you're a problem solver, guess what you're going to find? Problems. You're going to find problems maybe everywhere. You're going to maybe create problems to solve. 9s, they don't want that. 9s kind of think life should be easy. Life should be simple. I don't mean easy like lazy. I just mean easy like it should be simple. You go to work, you do your job. You don't fight and stress and strive. You just do your job, and then you come home and you eat together, you go for a walk, and you watch a little TV. Go to the park on Saturdays, and it should just be simple. It should just be easy. You shouldn't fight with life. You shouldn't wrestle with life. You don't need to sweat all the small things in life. You just, you become into more of an observer as a 9. You observe life, and you want to have you protect that sense of peace and security in life. And you be careful how much you interact and fight with life. 6s could benefit from that, becoming more observers to life, less strugglers with life, less resistant to what happens in life, less trying to figure it out and solve it and get ahead of it. Yeah, just realize that some things are out of your hands, and a lot of the things that you're worried about, they're not really going to happen. And if they did, maybe you'll have the strength to handle it. That's kind of the advice a 9 might give to the 6. Is that in all of your fixing of things, you're becoming broken. In all of your solving of life's problems, you are becoming a person of problems. And maybe the best solution to the problem is to realize, maybe there's not a problem here. If there is a problem, go to bed. If it's still there in the morning, then it really was a problem. If it's not, then it wasn't a problem. All right, thank you guys, and I'll see you next time. As always, be present to life, and I think for the 6, that might mean be present to life as it actually is, not the scary scenario of what might possibly happen on the worst day when the asteroids are falling, when the zombie apocalypse is out your window. Look out the window. Is there a zombie apocalypse? I know the news can really generate a lot of fear in life, but look out the window. The birds are still singing, the grass is still growing, squirrels are still up in the trees. Maybe enter into that 9 world of nature and find some peace for your life. I'll see you next time. Thank you, guys.